Your first $100,000 are a very significant milestone, and everyone in the finance world keeps talking about this number. But why? Does building wealth really become easier after that milestone? Yes, and I will explain. But first let me tell you about my personal experience. Since I've started working my very first job, it took me around 5 entire years to save up my first 100,000 USD. But getting to 200k only took me 14 months. So how can this be? Where's the magic? Isn't this exponential growth? Yes. And this is driven by a few different factors. The first factor is compound interest on your investments. Usually an index fund which grows over your lifetime. It seems very slow at first and depends on how much you can save each month. But luckily there's another factor which will speed it up. And that is salary progression. Over your lifetime you will receive raises, with each raise allowing you to invest more, which in turn leads to faster growth after each individual raise. Your wealth will grow and your position in your life becomes stronger. You will have the opportunity to take on higher risks. Because, for example, if you lose your job, you can survive on passive income for a while. And not only that, you can start diversifying into riskier asset classes or even start your own business. So, each time you have a new idea which needs upfront capital, you can just try it out without losing much. This all contributes to your wealth growing exponentially. But let's now focus on compound interest. It has been described as the eighth wonder of the world and is one of the most overpowered tools in history. Here we see a chart where a person invests $10,000 each year into the S&P 500. We see that going from 0 to 300,000 takes just as long as going from 300,000 to 1 million. And it only accelerates from there on. Warren Buffett was already rich in his late 20s. But if you zoom out, you will see that he made 99% of his wealth only after turning 50. That's exponential growth. Investing is like a passive multiplier, which is continuously applied to the money that you have saved. But this multiplier only becomes really noticeable after your first 100k. So imagine getting a boring 7% on that 100k every single year. That's $7,000. This is more than many people can save in a year. It's like having your own personal millennial, who will give you all of his savings at the end of each year for the rest of your life. This also means that someone else would have to save $7,000 each year just to keep up with your portfolio. We are not even considering all your other income streams yet. So in a good year where you make 23%, you are $23,000 closer to your second 100,000. And that's just in one single year. But even then it will take you many decades to get rich, and no one wants to wait 40 years to get there. So let's speed it up. Most of you probably start out as an employee, working full-time to make someone else rich. But you have control over how your salary progresses. Through a strategic mix of improving your skills, negotiating raises, and switching companies every few years, you will be able to invest more and more as time goes on. I have made a spreadsheet tutorial where you can compare job offers based on living costs, allowing you to decide whether or not relocating to a new city is worth it. The more capital you have, the more secure your position in life becomes. This means that you can take on new opportunities, even if they bear a lot of risk. So when the market is going through a crisis, you are not pressured into selling because you have other means to pay your bills. And not only that, with enough cash flow you can continue buying during those difficult times. That means you are accumulating even more assets for a very good price. For these reasons I have diversified a small portion of my portfolio into Bitcoin, and I've made a video explaining why. Even though your investments grow and your salary progresses, there are limits on how much you can make as an employee. Most career paths reach a limit in the lower six-figure range. So you have now two options. You either work much harder in your current job for another few years just to have a small chance of maybe getting a 10% raise. Or you can use the same time to start a side business, which you fully own and control. Since you are in a very stable financial position, there is not much risk involved, as you only risk your time. But the upside is unlimited. So the bad news and the good news is that your own business depends completely on you. Because unlike a normal job where working twice as hard does not result in twice the salary, a side business will yield you twice the revenue if you sell twice as much of your product. But how do I create new wealth through my own company? Well, you already know how to do this. Think about it. Right now at your current day-to-day job, you are building something. And this something keeps generating money and allows the business to keep running. This something is called wealth. The only problem here is that you don't keep this wealth which you just created. Instead, you give it to your boss in exchange for a salary. So, when your salary is used up, your boss will still profit from the very thing that you have built. Building your own business allows you to stop trading your time for money and instead build something which keeps generating money over time. And all of this leads to you building multiple income streams, which in turn opens more doors to make even more money. Capitalism in a nutshell. Exponential growth.